As the past chair of this committee, I will call the committee to order. And first order of business is the election of a chair. This term, it is the House that will be chairing it. So are there any nominations? Representative Wyler.
I nominate Representative Griffin to be chair.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Well, then, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Congratulations. And I turn it over to you, and I think you have to do a vice chair.
Thank you. Thank you for your confidence, all of you. The next item is the election of a vice chair, which would presumably be a senator, so take nominations for that position. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And thank you for your confidence.
I think everybody that's here today was here for the last set of minutes, so.
Move acceptance.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the prior meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, I guess Director Young, you're on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations. So we are here to provide a brief update of the status of the ongoing performance audits, and I will start off. Sure. Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll start with the New Hampshire Commission for Human Rights. Happy to report that the audit is complete. We presented the report to the Fiscal Committee on February 21st, and we also presented the report to the House Judiciary Committee on March 19th. So with that, the audit's complete, and there's nothing else to report on human rights. Next is the state oversight of the special education program. The audit is currently staffed with 3 auditors. The team is working diligently to conclude on their work. We're drafting observations for the completed portions of our work right now. 17 observations have been sent over to the department, and we've received auditee responses on 14 of those. We don't currently have full concurrence on any of the 14 observations, but we have partial concurrence on 12 of the observations that they've responded to so far. There's certainly more work to do on the audit, and as we do with all audits, we'll be working with the department to figure out where we have disagreements, and we'll work through that process with them. We expect to send another batch of observations to the department by the end of this month, and a full draft report is expected to be completed by late summer or early fall. Moving on to the Education Freedom Accounts audit. This audit is currently staffed with 3 auditors. Field work started in January and is expected to last through the summer. And as I mentioned in my last update, the EFA administrator's last day was November 25th. He was the one staff member that was responsible for the oversight of the contractor, the Children's Scholarship Fund. We're told that the department did receive permission to fill that position, but the position hasn't been filled yet. We met with the department to follow up on some audit topics and discuss some preliminary areas of concern. The process is a little bit slow right now because of the staffing situation there. We're continuing to do our field work on controls over initial eligibility and continued eligibility, and that is the largest section of our audit. Currently, we're focusing on eligibility processes for differentiated aid. That would be like the free or reduced lunch, the English language learner, and or qualifying disability. Once that is complete, we'll move on to auditing the EFA expenses. We expect observations to be sent over to the department starting this summer. It's very difficult on this audit to estimate when we'll wrap up, given the current staffing situation over there at the department. But we're hopeful that we'll have a draft report sometime this fall and a presentation to the fiscal committee by the end of the year. Moving on to the doorway program. This audit is currently staffed with 2 auditors. The scope statement was approved in December. The team's in the planning phase. They're conducting interviews, performing risk assessments, and working on the audit plan. The long-term outlook for doorways is to get the report to the fiscal committee by the end of this year. And that is it for the status of ongoing performance audits.
Thank you. I must say that the audit on the Commission for Human Rights was probably the worst one I've ever seen. And partly as a result of that, and partly just due to the budget constraints, the proposed budget eliminates that area. And we added 2 judges to the courts that specifically will pick up the loads of some of these committees that were designed to speed things up, but in practice really slowed them down. And in some cases, there was an incredible amount of money was being spent on each case, where if they went to court, the court cost might be $1,000 to the state. And we were spending anywhere between $1,500 and $10,000 with some of these boards that were originally designed to speed the process up and turned out making it more cumbersome and costly. So if the budget passes, there's going to be some significant changes in those areas. I was looking through some old audit reports, and I have a question. I noticed that we come back years later and there's still open items. So I had a question for you. What's the procedure at the end of an audit to follow up on the open items?
There is no procedure that I'm aware of in statute at all that requires us to go back and follow up periodically. There is a self-reporting procedure through an executive order. I believe it's Executive Order 2014-03, and that is a procedure where state agencies have to go back and periodically report on the status of the observations that were identified in our reports. There is currently no procedure for anyone to verify the department's status of those observations, but those status updates are posted to the Transparency New Hampshire website every 90 days, I believe.
Yes, Representative Weiland.
What we've done at fiscal is sometimes on those audits, we said, we want monthly or quarterly reports, and haven't done it to all of them, but a surprising observation on this New Hampshire Commission for Human Rights. They came before fiscal or some other committee at least and before the finance committee 2 or 3 times. And it was never the person that was supposedly the head of the thing. It was always, I'm filling in, or I'm been promoted temporarily. I'm thinking, yeah, there really is a problem at that agency. And I'm glad you pointed it out, because when the head of the agency never comes to testify, I'm wondering, what's going on here? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else have any comments? Anybody else have any comments on the ongoing auctions? Okay, we'll move on.
Oh, so Mr. Chair, one question. I might have
Senator
missed,
Lane.
thank you, apologize, I might have missed it. Did you say on the special education when you expect to have that completed by?
The special education audit, I had mentioned that a full draft report was expected to be completed by the late summer or early fall.
Thank you.
So that would be the report going to the department, including all of our observations and recommendations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Senator Rosen.
Thank you. You had said that on that audit, you'd sent them 17 observations, but you expect to release more. Do you have a sense of how many observations in total there will be?
There'll be more than 50.
Oh, so it's going to be a thick
Yes,
book.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it sounds to me like you've got a pretty full slate right now, all the way through the fall. Are you looking for extras at this point, or are you at capacity? Because I'm adding up, and I think that there were 11 auditors spread out among the 4.
Yes, we're certainly at capacity right now. We're not looking for any new audit topics. There are a couple on the list right now, but maybe for the next meeting, members could start to brainstorm and think about some new audit topics that they'd like to add to the list. We would appreciate having that list.
Okay, we'll move on. Do you want to talk about suspended, tabled, or potential audit?
Sure. So the first 2 audits on the agenda there for suspended audits, all 4 of these audits are for the Department of Health and Human Services, but the first 2 are the Bureau of Elderly and Adult Services and out-of-state placements. Those are suspended due to ongoing litigation, and we're told that that litigation is still in process. So I don't think there's anything we can do there until the litigation has been settled. And then the last 2 DHHS audits, contract management and the Bureau of Developmental Services, those are still on the list as potential audit topics. And that's all we have for potential topics at this point.
Excuse me, Senator Pearl.
Thank you. Just for the benefit of the committee, I had a constituent come to me with a potential topic dealing with the Fish and Game Department. What I did is I asked them to go talk with the new director, which they did. And so as of right now, they'd like to hold off a little bit because of their conversation with the new director, answered some of their questions, but the director herself was interested in having a little time to just get in and try and make some of the changes dealing with the concerns that this constituent had. So this may be a potential topic in the future. I won't put it on the table right now, but I just want to make the committee aware that that I did have a constituent raising some concerns about issues within Fish and Game. So in the future, I'll probably revisit that. Thank you.
Is there, anyone else have anything in other business?
Hello, I'll just mention, we did do a Fish and Game performance audit. I can't remember what year, it was back a few years ago, but that was another one, sort of a substantial audit at the time. So you may want to check that out or have your person who talked to you, look at that.
Yeah, thank you. I know they were aware that that occurred and they still had some additional concerns, but I directed them to, go see the new director and have that discussion first and see if they could resolve their concerns. But thank you for that.
Is there any other business to come, Senator Lane?
So I guess it's a question for the overall committee. I'm interested in having us do more follow-up on audits to see where we are after we've done an audit 2 years ago. Where are we now with the items and having that brought to us and say, hey, we did an audit 2 years ago of liquor. Here's the 5 things that they still have not fixed that need someone to put pressure or do whatever it needs to have. But we're doing these audits and sometimes it's a fire and forget. We do the audit, we get the report, we're moving on to the next audit before we do that. So I'm wondering if it's within the purview of this committee to take a look back at, audits as they're completed with like a 2-year look back and say, okay, 2 years ago we did this. Here's where we are. They fixed all of these deficiencies, but these deficiencies still outstanding. They maybe give some better highlighting and direction.
Representative Weiler?
Well, you mentioned Liquor Commission. It brings up an audit that it was very lengthy, 300 pages, but it was very thorough. And the House looked at it and we found that the enforcement branch were not doing the description of their duties, and I think probably Mr. Henry will remember this, was to go and check on all the places that served liquor, make sure they were not over-serving or serving someone that didn't have an ID and so on. And it turned out that the enforcement branch wasn't doing as much of that as we thought. There were like, I can't remember how many of them there were, but they should have covered all 1,400 in a year's work. They only covered half of them. One of them they visited 35 times. Others they visited 0. And they seemed to spend a lot of time getting with local cops to do sobriety checks. And we thought, you're not doing what we asked you to do. So when it came before the House, we removed the law enforcement from them and made them educators. So they would go around, they could still do their job, and then they could withdraw the license if they saw something going wrong. But and then we asked for follow-up reports, and some of the reports I got from liquor were like, 2 of them saved lives. They were there at the scene when somebody had an accident on the road. And, this kind of thing, I thought, this isn't the description of your duties. So we took their badges away. It went to the Senate, and the Senate reinstalled the law enforcement. So I'm asking you again, when it comes to, read that audit, take a good look, because if they're not doing the job of going around and checking on people serving, rather than trying to get on the road and look for drunks driving on the road and having police help them, I don't think that's what we had in mind when we put those people in law enforcement. So you might consider keeping their badges away from them.
So again, I didn't mean to get into a discussion about law enforcement. Again, I'm being a former police officer. I'm inclined to disagree with you. But that being said, my discussion was around the idea of, I happen to know we did an audit. We did an audit of them, and I was wondering where we stood with the deficiencies, and whether or not it's the purview of this committee to have an updated report on a more regular basis that says, hey, this audit we did X number of years ago, they still have 5 outstanding deficiencies, and maybe we want to address that. So that was my mistake for using liquor. I just happen to remember we did an audit of them recently, and so but that was my point. My point wasn't to target liquor and think. Yeah, a fishing game, all right? So we did, wherever we've done an audit in the last 36 months, maybe we should have a follow-up to see how many deficiencies are still outstanding from the audit, and whether or not, this committee should take any kind of action or make any kind of recommendations. That was my point.
Good memory.
I think the point is well taken, and it follows on my original question about what we're doing, and I don't know how do the rest of the group feel about that. Should we have the director think about what they can do as a more active follow-up on audits?
So again, my idea was have them to provide a list of the audits we've done recently in the past. I don't want to go back to some audits 7 years ago, but the more recent audits that are probably have taken attention, and either bring the agency head in and say, here's your list of audits that LBA identified as discrepancies. Tell me where you are in all these, and have them cross off what they've done and what they haven't done. And so we have an idea, and hold again, maybe do our oversight part of this commission of doing more oversight of the audits we've already approved.
Senator Rosenbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've done a reasonably good job when we get an audit and the finding says legislative action may be required. I think we've done a pretty good job of usually Representative Weiler filing something to fix that. Where we run into problems are the things that the executive branch can fix on its own. And we can make noise about it, but it requires the cooperation of the agency and the governor. And so I don't know if it's here or in fiscal that we bring them in and bring up, why haven't you fixed this thing that you can do without us taking action? But there are some audits. And let me just, since you got into the liquor thing, let me bring up one that was done on lottery about, I don't know, I want to say 8 years ago, that said they weren't locking the room where they drew the winning numbers. I think it took them 5 years, and they waited until they moved to put a lock on that door. So there are decisions that are being made outside of the legislative branch that I'm not sure how much influence we have, except we can make noise about it, and probably we should.
I just wanted to show up right there and say, we didn't do what we asked. You asked us to fix it. We didn't fix it. Right? So let them come up and say that. Right.
Right,
And,
right.
right.
But
Maybe
there,
that'll in itself will inspire action.
perhaps, it did not with the lock. Thank you.
Director Young.
Sure. Can I just make one point? I am absolutely in agreement that there should be some more follow-up on all of our audits, not just performance audits, financial audits as well. Different things have been tried throughout the years that haven't really stuck. We like to see more resolution of the audit findings, because we come back year after year after year, and there's still additional issues noted. I just wanted you to keep in mind our performance audit staff. We have 10 performance auditors right now, including Jay. We have one vacancy that we're not able to fill because of the freeze. So if we were to do the follow-up, it would certainly take away time for us to be able to work on additional audit topics. But we're certainly willing to consider whatever it is the committee suggests in following up on audits.
Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It seems to me that this might be something that we could deal with along the model that we use in the Health and Human Services Oversight Committee, which is another joint committee where people report what they've done and sometimes report what they haven't done. It seems to me from that experience that just having people come and say, you are going to be here on May 5th or whenever our next meeting is, and we would like to go over these 5 things, or, I don't think we need to get into placing a huge burden on the performance oversight staff, but I think that having people come and simply have a discussion is sometimes very helpful, and at a minimum, as people have already said, it highlights that something was supposed to happen and hasn't. So it does tend to focus people's minds. And my experience is just getting everybody in the same room at the same time. Sometimes you can actually have a conversation that is very helpful in terms of resolving whatever the issue was. So not saying that will happen. It's not a magic bullet,
Right,
but
so my intention was not to have you do work except for the point of saying, hey, here's Liquor's audit, here's the X number of deficiencies, and we give that to the agency and say, show up and talk to us about this. That would be the extent of what I would expect you to do in the audit division, is give us a list of the deficiencies, and then we'll hand that to the executive director of the agency and say, or commission the agency, say, can you come and give us an update on which of these you fixed? And then let them show up and say, we've done 1 through 10, it's all taken care of, here's the things we've done. Numbers 11 through 15, we haven't touched yet. Great, what's your plan to get numbers 11 through 15 fixed? So that would be that's the way I would see it working. I wouldn't want you to go through and do that work, but you also made the deficiency list. So ask you to give us a 1-page or whatever number of pages necessary for the deficiency list that we could give the agency and say, come in and talk to us about this.
That's
That
great.
was my intention.
Thank you for clarifying that. That sounds a little more reasonable, I think. I'm looking at our staff going, oh my gosh, how are we going to do all that? But yes, absolutely. That sounds good.
I just have one thing to add here. I was looking at your statute, this committee, and it looks like the committee shall consider the need to review state agencies, departments, commissions, et cetera, and make recommendations. So it could be under that umbrella of you're thinking about the need to review a state agency, and that could be, what have you done on this last audit? So I think that would fit within your statute if you wanted to do that. And again, I think it would also motivate leadership to look at the old audits, especially if you give them some time they're going to come in 6 months. What have you done?
But I guess, Mr. Chair, the next step would be I'd ask that maybe we can get a list of all the audits that have been done in the last 36 months. You know, that's probably enough time without going too far back to really old stuff. And we can pick which agency and what audit we want to bring in and create a list. So we can have more regular meetings of bringing these agencies in to make sure that they're actually performing and fixing the discrepancies that have been identified.
And you would also have whatever they published on Transparency New Hampshire. So you'd have their, here's what they've said so far. Now, not every agency publishes every 6 months their update that they're supposed to do, and no one is enforcing that. So, but there are some agencies that are very good at it. Department of Health and Human Services tends to be very good at that now, as far as updating on their old audits.
Just imagine knowing that they're going to be called in front of the committee, they might take some actions to update that website.
Representative Earth.
So if we're going to do this, and I'm totally fine with it, I think we should go back even further initially, go back 10 years. Not having to do the entire 10 years in one fell swoop, but start 10 years back, do the 10 to 5, if you will. So we can at least see, are we really in trouble? And then they can look at the closer
Yeah,
ones.
my concern was more that commissioner may be gone, or maybe all new agency heads and they're not even aware, they're not even paying attention. But we know that the ones that have been here in the last 4 or 5 years are pretty consistent. And
But that's the point, whether they're here or not here, if the problems aren't addressed.
yeah, no, I agree.
So how does the committee feel as a whole about the plan that's evolving here, based on Senator Lane's comments and the other comments? Is everybody, looks like everybody's with the plan. So I think we'll move forward on that. Our next meeting, you can bring some kind of an outline of how we go about it, and I think pretty much we know it's not going to be a cumbersome thing for you. It's just lining up the departments to come in and speak with us.
Mr. Chair, if I may. I think the first step would be to have the audit division create a list of all the audits completed in the last 10 years, and then the committee can make a decision on which of those audits we want to take up first. And then from
That'd be
there, we
fine.
can, does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Absolutely happy to do that, compile a list. The other thing I want to note is if you go to our website, All of our performance audits are listed there with the most recently released audit at the top of the list, and it's all done by date. So you could easily go to that and just look at, the last 10 years and see what audits we've completed in the last 10 years.
Representative Weber?
I think that the issue for most of us, or at least for me, let me just speak for myself, is perhaps a link to the transparency site, which I have not yet discovered. And if there are easy cross-references, but if not, I think between all of us, we can certainly relieve you of some of the burden, because I can think of the ones that particularly interest me, and I'm sure everybody else has their own particular ones that they were concerned about at the time and might like to follow up on, and we can, between us, think about a list and perhaps forward to the chairman our thoughts on things that we would particularly like to see. But having the cross-reference between the updates and the performance audit, because the audits are all there, that's easy, would be really helpful.
That sounds like a good plan.
If I may, are the transparency filings, are they all in one spot, and are they also chronological?
I don't know that they're chronological. I think they are listed there by state agency.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay,
So the action item for the next meeting is
Right.
a list, and then so we can discuss, not everybody's got technology in front of them or anything else, so a simple paper list of the last audits for the last 10 years, and then amongst the committee, we can decide which is the first action item we want to take up.
That sounds good.
Senator Rosenblum.
Thank you. Would it be possible on that list to outline how many findings there were? So that if there are 5 findings, we might set it aside, but if there are 50, we might want to take a look. Thank you.
Yes, we can do that.
And I think we could
Representative
also
Wylie.
take their reported response. We can also say how many of those have they said they've completed. So I think we could give you yeah,
A little summary.
yeah, you,
Representative Weiler.
Please let your auditors know how much I value their work and how much I find it helpful when we do the budget. Very good stuff.
I will do that. Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the committee? The last thing on the agenda is the date of the next meeting, and I guess that you people will let us know when we need to get together again, and when we have something to discuss.
yeah, well, it looks like the audits will be finished. Some of them will start to be finished around the end of the year. So we'll need new topics. So when auditors come off those audits, they have something to go to. So that's months away. But the thing you were just talking about, that you may want to happen sooner.
Yes.
So it's really up to call of the chair and the committee when you want us to get that ready for you and when you want to start. That's like a separate process, at least in my mind.
Well, what's a realistic timetable, do you think, on that?
I mean, we could, within a month, we could have, easily in a month, we could have that, that list ready for you. So it's really up to when you want to come together again
Okay.
and start that process.
Mr. Chairman, make a recommendation. If it's a month, we look at the first Friday of every month as a standing meeting for us, so
Yeah.
that we know that we can get, next month, we'll get the list of agencies, and then we can make a decision on there, notify the agency, then come back the next month to respond to our first,
Right.
right? So we look at the first of every month, first Friday of every month as a standing committee day for this
Is every-
oversight process.
Is the committee good with that? Okay, so what's the date of
May 2nd would be the date in May.
May 2nd.
10 a.m.
10 a.m., May 2nd. Does that work for you people?
Unfortunately, but we can take a look at that date, and if it turns out there's a conflict, I can have Jay reach out to you, the chair.
Okay. That'll work. Okay, I guess we're adjourned. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye.